Today, I'm gonna show you how to become rich using this Bitcoin cycle strategy over the next 2 years. A step-by-step play of where we are in the cycle, the lead up until now, and dispelling the myth that we must go lower before we go much, much higher. And most importantly, guys, the exact date of when you should be taking profits in order to become rich during this Bitcoin cycle. All right, guys, if that sounds good to you, make sure you like the video. If you're new to the channel, what's up? My name is Kyle Chasse. I've been in crypto for 12 years, bringing you guys all the alpha that you need to know in order to absolutely crush it in this upcoming bull market. With that being said, guys, let's get into the video. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take you over and we're gonna show you that the trade that we made yesterday is in nice profits, guys. If you made this trade with me, like the video if you haven't already. And if you're not yet in our VVIP group, make sure that you go down in the description and look at how to get involved in our VVIP group. You can see that yesterday I opened this trade right around here, and I told you how to double your profits in the next 33 to 41 days. And that's exactly what the plan is. And now that we have nice 15% profits over here already in this one day on Bitcoin, for 4,500, I'm very, very comfortable leaving this trade open until the ETF approval. That is my plan that I laid out for you guys yesterday. So far, it's working out very, very, very well. So join us in the VVIP group, guys. You can get all kinds of alpha, including, and I can't really do this on this channel because there's too many of you guys in here. And if I do something dumb, like give you a horrible, degenerate meme coin that could go to zero, but also could go to the moon, I don't want to do this on this channel. So in the VVIP group, I do that because it is a bit more degenerate. People in there have a bit more experience because they're learning with us. And I go in there and I tell them. But like, for example, yesterday, guys, this is just an example. I'm not saying to go buy this thing, but this foo-foo, you can see that yesterday, we told you to buy it it was in the group, in the VVIP group, around here, I believe. And it went up over 200% since we first called it. So that's just the VVIP group, guys. It's a lot of fun, but let's break down this market cycle. The first clip of this video, this is a guy named Loukas, very, very successful. The guy literally bought the bottom here, and we're gonna go through the market cycle, guys, right now. So first thing we're gonna talk about here is the disbelief stage, and let's talk about that.
And that's what the disbelief stage is all about. The beginning phase, come off this 16, 17,000 level. Everyone was kind of expecting another decline here after this 7-8 week consolidation in December. At that point, of course, there were bankruptcies everywhere, FTX, a lot of people had their funds locked on exchanges. So it just looked as dire as it can come. But of course, all cycles typically turn right at the worst time when there is obviously, sort of, to use that analogy, blood in the street. That's exactly what we had, and that's when we turned, and we turned sharply. And even this early move from 17,000 straight to 21, and then two or three weeks later to 25, just left people behind, not really able to buy. And the ones that did buy probably got shaken out right away with that move down in March. Then we had this sort of 2 candles, and before you knew it, Bitcoin was back to 28, 29,000 or 30,000. People felt as if they really kind of couldn't get in.
Now, the craziest thing, guys, is that, if you guys have been watching my channel, also, you know that for like 7 months or something like that, I've been telling you guys the bottom of the market was literally the FTX collapse. Right around here, literally the bottom. And of course, I didn't know it at the time, but just, a few months afterwards, I was like, okay, probably that, like right around here is when I made a video saying that, I believe that the bottom is in and that we're up from here, right? And that's when I decided to take out any dry powder and allocate it into the market. So that's what I've been doing since right around here. And we're up very, very nicely since then. So congratulations to all of you guys who also got in with me very, very early this bear cycles, this cycle. So next, guys, we're going to talk about the confirmation here that the bear market is over. So you can see, well, he'll break it down here, but we've been trending within this box right here, and you can see that we broke out. Let's listen to him.
From that $26,000 range, slicing right through the range that had developed with the April highs and the July highs. Essentially, at this point right here, I think putting a nail in the sort of bear's coffin at that point with new 2023 highs. This moment here, although I was more than confident that the bull market 4-year cycle was already in play, of course, by getting in early. But I think what this sort of told the market right here with this slice through back in October was that the 4-year cycle is in fact in a new cycle and in the bull trend and heading higher. So
that's what we really needed. We needed the confirmation that we were in a new confirmed market cycle and that the bull trend was confirmed. When it broke out of that box, he's looking, by the way, at the weekly. So these are weekly candles, guys. And it's really important to note that to look on longer time frames, because you could have had, like look at all these candle wicks over here. You can see it where, we touch this resistance line, but they came back down. So you can't look at these things on a daily or, a 4-hour time frame. You need to look on longer time frames. So the weekly this here is when we clearly broke out of this resistance, and it was up only from that point on. So the next part we're going to talk about here, listen to Bob, is really the ETF and the catalyst that will send this the entire market higher. Let's take a listen here.
Obviously, there's already an impact. There's obviously a significant amount of buying that's been going on in anticipation of an approval. Now, I don't have the answer to whether or not it will be approved or not. There are very, very few people that do. But the market feels as if an approval is coming. And generally, with so much sort of traditional finance and institutional money coming in, I get the feeling that this approval is going to be coming in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks before these deadlines are due. That is my read, at least, of the tea leaves, and that's what the market and the price action, I believe, is telling us. And people have said, well, isn't that going to be sort of a sell the news event? Isn't that priced in? And my thinking is, no, it's not, for a number of reasons. One, when you look at where we stand in the 4-year cycle, here's the monthly chart, which, by the way, is just picture perfect, running to script, as good as you can get, essentially, with now just 9 to 10 months in.
I want to show you guys something too. Look at how this seems to be mimicking more along the lines here of this 2015 to 2017 bull run. You can see here, it looks almost identical. This portion here looks nearly identical to this portion over here. Again, this is on the monthly time frame, so it's even more confirmation of an evolving pattern here, guys. And so in just a second, let's finish listening to this. Then we'll talk about where you should be selling and what we can expect from this upcoming bull run as well.
From the last 4-year cycle. So we're in the most advantageous sort of phase of a cycle, of a long 4-year cycle. So the tailwind is behind this market. So when you get extremely positive news, something like an ETF approval that really has been 10 years in the making, we've gone through kind of these ETF is coming narratives many, many times over the cycles. But if it were to actually arrive this time around, I think what's different this time around is that in the past, back in 2020 and 2017 and other periods where we talked a lot about an ETF approval, I don't think the general market was was in a position to embrace an ETF wholeheartedly, whereas it is today.
It wasn't even just the general market, and I think that the actual infrastructure. So not just BlackRock, VanEck, Fidelity, Grayscale, not just these guys, but if you've been paying attention, over the last couple of years, there's been so much news talking about, all the biggest banks in the world setting up their infrastructure to be able to offer crypto to their customers, custody their crypto for their customers, which is completely the opposite of what crypto is all about. But hey, everyone wants to make money, and so everybody's in now. And so it took the world preparing, and over this last bear market, there was so much positive news. That's why I was just so bullish the entire time. If all you had to do is look, and every day there was news about this bank opening, crypto stuff, and this president, and this thing, and it was just everybody was setting up.
When you look at sort of some of the traditional financial news media, and you look at CNBC, for example, the narrative towards, or the view and the sentiment towards Bitcoin by not just the analysts and the presenters, but essentially anybody that comes onto these shows, there are very, very few skeptics anymore for Bitcoin. Most either have a neutral stand or a very positive and bullish stand. Of course, that's because they see the potential for themselves and their traditional firms, institutional firms, to take advantage of this. But that also extends more broadly to the general population. I think now Bitcoin has achieved a level of awareness and has moved from kind of that scammy, fake internet money kind of viewpoint that everybody held to, yeah, this actually makes some sense. I understand it, and it's been around through boom and bust cycle now 3 to 4 times that it's legitimate. And the reason I bring this up is the environment is ripe where if these ETFs get approved, that the follow-on capital inflow, the ability for wealth managers and investment advisors, for example, to convince their clients to allocate some of their funds towards Bitcoin is now in place.
So, and if you want to like look at a real life example of what he's talking about here, let's take my dad, for example. Like, he was definitely not, you know, I came to my parents very, very early. My mom, in 2000, I think it was 15, my mom went through Fidelity actually and rolled her Roth IRA retirement accounts into Bitcoin in 2015. So that was very, very, she was open to it. But my dad is more like the mainstream kind of guy, which is where most people are sitting, right? And so it took him, you know, from seeing me go into the space in 2012 to him seeing these boom and bust cycles like Bob here is talking about, to where today he's finally like, woo, Bitcoin to the moon. So it took a while for this to happen. And so now let's listen to what Bob here has to say about where we potentially could be going here in this upcoming cycle. And then after that, I'm going to give you my own thesis as well.
In theory, is a 4-year cycle that is mirroring the prior cycles. And if we are to look at sort of what prior cycles have done, of course, a prior cycle does not in any way guarantee that you'll see something similar in this cycle, but it still is worth kind of just painting somewhat of a picture here to what potentially could come from a cycle, especially one that sort of somewhat mirrors the 2015 to 17 cycle, yeah, or even less so would be the 2018 to sort of 2021 top, which still wasn't a horrible performer by any means. Those two cycles, if they were to play out, sort of point to a $200,000 to a $900,000 or so Bitcoin price in the next cycle. Now, of course, there's the idea that we'll see diminishing returns. The last 2 cycles had returned less than the prior cycle. So looking at that, then maybe there's a target of around about 120, 130,000. The point, though, really is that there's 2 points here. One is we're never going to know where this cycle tops. And it doesn't matter what your favorite analyst online tells you or what their price prediction will be. It's really just like throwing darts at a board. We just don't know. What I'm more focused on here is the 2 scenarios of whether or not we're going to see a repeat right translated cycle, and they were very consistent, month 33, 35, and 35, bringing us towards the end of 2025, 2 years from this point. If this cycle plays out like the prior 3 cycles played out, then we've got almost 2 years of a bull market ahead of us. It's a very, very long time for you to remain disciplined and patient and in that position, with the goal being, and I said this very thing in that last cycle, with the goal being of just sitting in that position and focusing on that upper box right there where the timing for an expected next cycle will occur.
You guys want to get a little bit excited right now. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, we've already made sick gains on things, right? We're up 100, 200% on some of these investments. And where we are right now, if you look at this current cycle that we're in right now compared to where we were in 2015 to 2017 cycle, it's like right here, right? And so things are about to get super, super frothy. But the important thing about making this video here, guys, is that when you get to a period of like here, right, this period here, this is, if you haven't been in a cycle like this before, especially the 2017 one was absolutely nuts. It's really, really, really easy to get carried away and forget the things that we're talking about today. This is the point of the video today, is to remind us to try to keep a rational head, because when your portfolio goes up 20, 30, 40, 50% day after day for weeks, This is a monthly chart, guys. Look at this. Look at this. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was down. And people probably got scared there, probably flushing people out. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, a little bit down. 12, 13, 14. When you're up only for basically 14 months, you think it's never going to stop, right? And it's a really, really, really hard thing to figure out because imagine if you sold down here, like we're here now. So imagine that, it comes up to, let's say that here is somewhere around the, all-time highs or something. And then you got PTSD, so you sold here, but you missed all these gains. The real secret here is to make sure that you try to sell somewhere, like if you were to sell here, anywhere here, or even here, that's pretty good, right? What you don't want to do is hold your bag all the way down here and lose, 80, 90% of your all-time high, right? And so that's really important. So what he was talking about here, guys, you have to pay attention to is that essentially, so these cycles from here until essentially here, so from trough to peak to trough, it's 47 months. And that's essentially 4 years, right? And from trough or bottom to peak is about 3 years. So where we are here, we're from bottom to peak takes about 2 years. Sorry, 3 years. And we're 1 year into it. So that's why he's saying we have about, if this current cycle mimics the past 3 cycles, then we have about 3 years from the bottom, which was a year ago. It was November. It was FTX, last year. So we're already 1 year into it. So we have 2 more years to go. Now, let's go over this and take a look at what could be exceptions. He also talks about the law of diminishing returns, right? And so the law of diminishing returns, let's see if I can get rid of this here. So it talks about, that as an asset class grows, there's more liquidity in the market and there's less people to buy and it gets more expensive. And so each time you get a cycle, a pump, it's going to pump less than the time before. Now there's something called a super cycle. And I'm in the camp of believing that we are going to go into a super cycle. Now, is it going to be this cycle or next cycle, next bull market or this bull market? And that I don't have the answer to. So that's, again, why we have to be extremely careful. But if you look at this chart here, this is the phases of technology adoption cycle. I believe that we're still here in the right after innovators and early adopters, right? And so here we're just starting, this is mainstream adoption, right? So we're just starting to see here. And so you can see from the time from now until Bitcoin essentially becomes quite stable over here, you're not going to, Bitcoin will eventually hit whatever it is, $1 million, $5 million. And the price will become more like a world reserve currency or gold, where it doesn't really fluctuate very much from its current asset prices. So like, in 3 or 4 cycles from now, a bull run might be, Bitcoin from 5 million to 5,100,000 or 5,200,000 or something, right? So it'll be less exciting than, you're definitely not going to get a 20x like we did from the bottom to the top of the last cycle, right? And the one before that was like 24x or something like that. And so if the one before that was like 24, 25x, then the last one is 20x, then one might assume that this upcoming cycle is less than that. It's, 15x from the bottom to the top or something. But we have never been in a situation like we are now. We're now in a place where we have an ETF. So every other rally thus far has been driven by retail. We have not had institutional adoption on a massive scale. Pension funds, BlackRock, governments, nation states, billionaires, in the masses who are coming in. And so that's why I think that this cycle will likely be a super cycle. A super cycle is defined as a cycle that has continuous and exceptional growth beyond what traditional or subsequent market cycles have done. So if you believe to a normal market psychology, then you would believe in the law of diminishing returns. You can see that this cycle, 2015 to 17, was greater than the subsequent cycle from 19 to 21. And so this line, this blue line up, what Bob is drawing, this is if you would put the same movement of the 2015 to 2017 cycle, you would see it peak out here at around almost $900. And if we believe that it's going to be the same as the last cycle of 2021, we can go to about 150, between $130,000 to $150,000. But if you believe in the law of diminishing returns, we may be willing to go to $100,000, right? And so we have to develop a strategy to make sure we plan around that. And if it goes to $150,000 and corrects 80%, like it has done before, 75%, that means it comes all the way back down to $30,000, less than it is right now. So you do not want to be stuck in that situation. Now, what I'm planning on doing, guys, is making sure that we look and see how adoption is happening. Now, we're also going to plan to take profits along the way, right? So we want to take profits along the way. And on this video, or on this channel, guys, we're going to be going and covering this daily as the market ensues. And I have a team of very, very dedicated, very conservative and strict researchers and analysts who will be helping myself and you guys to try to dissect the market as it's happening and make sure that we don't get caught off guard. Because admittedly, last cycle, I didn't sell in time and was left holding my bag and, pretty much not all the way to the bottom, but pretty much lower than I would have liked to. And we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again, guys, because it's so easy to do. Remember too, that when you have these, and you might be saying like, oh, that's so silly. It's so obvious. You could have just you could have just sold, like, oh, you should have just sold, whatever here, right? But then it came back here. And also when you have, if you look at like a weekly chart, for example, this turns out the moon phases. if you guys believe in some people trade on moon phases where they believe that market pumps when it's a full moon. So let me just show you. It gets a little bit more tricky than that, right? So we have had these pullbacks, on the way up. So if you look at, like a market like from here in 19 up until 2021 peak, you have these pretty significant pullbacks and they don't look like big on this chart, but this is like a 30% pullback. And so you might say, oh, it's so easy. You should have just sold as soon as it pulled back over here. But the thing is, imagine if I would have sold here, then I would have missed all of these gains up here, right? So it's not easy to do. So I have a strategy, right? And it's going to develop as we go along. But right now, I would think that the minimum is a 2x from old all-time highs. That puts us about $120,000. I plan on taking some profits at that time, but of course that's going to depend on how things go with the ETF. Now also understand that this is Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin maybe does on the low side a 2x, the high side, the absolute high side, a 10 to 15x, which would literally be a super cycle. And that would be due to the massive printing of the US dollar, debasing or decreasing the value, the purchasing power of the dollar, which increases the purchasing or the value of the Bitcoin in comparison to the dollar. That's how you get to $1 million. The purchasing power doesn't exactly correlate. But how we become very, very rich in the cycle is if Bitcoin does 5x, 500%, a lot of these altcoins are going to do 50 or 100x. And so guys, I'm mostly about finding alpha on altcoins. That's why I make this content. But I wanted to make this video for you because we are planning on buying altcoins, the low cap ones that are going to pump like crazy, that are going to make you those sweet 50x, 100x gains. Because remember, if something goes 100x, and it's extremely possible, guys, I've done it so many times before, that $10,000 turns into $1 million. And then the right thing is to know when to sell that and how to take profits. All right, guys, I hope that you found a lot of value in this. I will catch you on the next one. See you later. Bye-bye.